Hello, everybody. What's going on? This your girl Tiffany coming through right here live in effect. So today or tonight, this happened by random. Um, I decided I wanted to talk about history. So on today, history, November the 10th, 1780, an organization was founded in Newport, Rhode Island. It was called the Free African Union Society. So that's where I'm going to get into the topic about the Free African Union Society. And I'm going to show you the photo that I have posted. Okay. That's the photo of the. All right. Right here is the photo. And if you can see, it's like a flyer. It's kind of distorted, but it says records for, I don't know what it says, record for BITHS purchased by the members of the African Union Society in Newport, Rhode Island for the benefit of free Africans and other free people of color at the same and adjoining towns who shall come bringing, shall come and bring the list that have the fees for recordings, Union Society, and other recordings. So I can't really read all that because it's kind of distorted, but that's the original flyer, as you can see. Okay. So, anyways, let's go into the history about this, shall we? All right. So right here, if you can see what I'm posting up, it comes from the article called Early Black Benevolent Society from 1780 to 1830. The author is Robert L. Harris Jr. and agrees to the chat. So, and the source is the Massachusetts Review, Autumn 1979, Volume 20, Number 3. Okay. So autumn means fall. All right. So page 603 to 625. And it's published by the Massachusetts Review Incorporation. And this is the website where you can go find it. So let's go down to the information. All right. So right here at the bottom, I'm going to zoom it up for y'all. As a matter of fact, let me start with the introduction first. All right. So the introduction goes the Early Black Benevolent Society, 1780 to 1830. In the shaping of Black America, Lerone Bennett Jr. has perceptibly described the 50-year span from 1787 to 1837 as perhaps the most important in the history of Black America. He divided the era into two parts. The first, 1787 to 1816, when Northern Free Blacks laid the institutional infrastructure of the Black community, and the second, 1817 to 1837, when they completed the infrastructure and moved to a new level of protest. Although other historians have recognized the importance of this period, they have not scrutinized the beginnings of organized life among Afro-Americans, nor have they given adequate attention to the early Black Benevolent Society, which spawned Black institutions. August Meyer maintains, for example, that the pattern of racial solidarity and self-help is first observed among Afro-Americans in the wave of conservative reaction following the Revolutionary War, when integration into American society was discouraged for Black people. While his hypothesis has some heuristic values, it is based in large measure on a reactive model of Black behavior. Okay, so let's start right there. So many in the time period, now this time they're speaking of was between the 1780s and in the 1830s. Okay, in those time periods, right, there were Black organizations. They would consider themselves the African organization. All right. So many in the midst of slavery, in the midst of Revolutionary War, These black people who were particularly free Africans decided to come together and create organization to help other Africans to become free and to have something for their own, have a own society, their own union they can call on. They can primarily focus on the issue that's dealing with only in the black community. Okay? So everybody was not for integration. Everybody didn't jump on the bandwagon. There was some black folks say, you know what? If we can't go over there, whatever, let's start our own. We ain't gonna keep begging and begging to be accepted. We gonna create something for ourselves so we can accept us and do for us. That was the mentality that certain black folks had back then. Okay? So now, I want to go ahead and continue on. All right, so let me skip on down. Okay, it says, we often ignore the fact that there were two emancipation of slaves in this country. The first took place during the Revolutionary War as the Patriots extolled the rights of men in their fight for independence. Many religious bodies, especially the Society of Friends, condemned the practice of slaveholding. By 1776, the Quakers had banned slavery among its members. Leading public figures such as Benjamin Franklin, Benjamin Rush, Patrick Henry, Thomas Jefferson, and Samuel Hopkins, among others, also voiced opposition to slavery. Now, I find that pretty ironic that Thomas Jefferson happened to be on here to be one of those who was in opposition of slavery, but he owned slaves, right? I mean, that's what I thought. So it's just pretty ironic that Thomas Jefferson would be against slavery, but he had slaves of his own. But anyway, let's continue. The strongest appeal came from blacks who fought in the war and who petitioned for their freedom. Sidney Kaplan, in his volume, The Black President in the Era of the American Revolution, 1770 to 1800, includes excellent reproduction of those cries for liberty. Boston blacks in 1773 present the governor and the legislators with a pamphlet by the white merchant James Swan, in which he declared that no country can be called free where there is one slave. 6 years later, Portsmouth, New Hampshire, blacks implored the state to abolish slavery. Black in Connecticut on May 11, 1779, request their freedom on the grounds that the state assembly would understand and sympathize with their plight because of the legislators' own struggle in the cause of liberty. All right, so that's the introduction. Okay, so let's get down to the history behind the Free African Union Society. Okay. Oh, Jesus. And I say that with expression, okay? All right. Now, right here, it says the first known for Black voluntary association was the African Union Society. Established November the 10th, 1780 in Newport, Rhode Island, there were free blacks organized to promote the local black population welfare by assisting its members in time of need. The group did not limit itself, however, to its membership, as it also engaged in activities deemed beneficial to all Black people in Newport. It was intimately concerned with their moral fortunes and assisted them by recording their births, deaths, marriage, and by seeking to apprentice Black youth in useful trades. All right. Because of Newport's central location as a trading post, its free Black inhabitants often met their number from other cities, especially in the North. The African Union Society maintained a regular correspondence with free Blacks elsewhere. In June of 1787, for instance, its secretary wrote to Boston's free Blacks about immigrating to Africa. In 1787, for instance, its secretary wrote to Boston's free Black about immigrating to Africa. Earlier that year, Blacks in Boston had appealed to the Massachusetts General Court for support in returning to Africa. Okay? They had implored, we or our ancestors have been taken from all our dear connection and brought from Africa and put into a state of slavery in this country, from which unhappy situation we have been lately in some measure delivered by the new constitution, which has been adopted by the state or by a free act of our former masters. But we find ourselves in many respects in very disagreeable and disadvantageous circumstances, most of which must attend us as long as we and our children live in America. So now, the talk about immigrating back to Africa, this is before the American society colonization even exists. Okay, this was 1787. And this took place in Boston, where they were speaking about Blacks immigrating to Africa. And this is for you ADOS people. Okay, if y'all don't know about it, you better study. Because this is your history, okay? This is your ancestry. Now let's go down. It says the African Union Society had earlier discussed the possibility of immigrating with William Thornton, a white West Indian Quaker. They later agreed with Boston Blacks that they should depend only on themselves and not Thornton to find a suitable place for a settlement in Africa. Okay? Although they sought financial assistance because of their own meager resources, they wanted to establish an independent Black nation that was not beholden to any group or individual. The mutual cooperation by Newport and Boston Free Black marked the earliest sign of a community of interest between northern cities. They recognized the need for racial solidarity, share objectives, and a willingness to work together. Soon, the African Union Society proposed the organization of Northern Free Blacks around the issues of immigration. In September of 1789, the Voluntary Association contacted Philadelphia's Free African Society, organized in the spring of 1787, through Henry Stewart, who had visited Newport while traveling from Philadelphia to Boston. The African Union Society sought the Free African Society's endorsement of immigration, but was rebuffed when the latter group responded that with regard to the immigration to Africa, which you mentioned, we have at present but little to communicate on that head, apprehending every pious man is a good citizen of the whole world. Okay, so there was some form of disagreement. Pretty much. Failing in its efforts to join Northern Free Blacks around immigration, the African Union Society focused its attention on Rhode Island. A series of correspondence ensued between Newport and Providence Free Blacks with the aim of forming a single African society. Providence Free Blacks suggest a petition similar to that issued in Boston, whereby Rhode Island Blacks would request support for immigration to Sierra Leone, which had been established as an African settlement by the British in 1787 for those blacks who had supported the loyalists in the Revolutionary War. The African Union Society approved this proposal and sought to form free black society throughout the state to strengthen the petition. All right. So it then goes on to say that although unsuccessful in uniting free blacks nationally or locally, the African Union Society continued to radiate and influence beyond Newport. Despite the Free African Society's rejection of immigration, Newport and Philadelphia free blacks maintained warm fraternal relations. In March of 1794, the African Union Society sent the modest sum of $6 to help establish an African church in Philadelphia. That city, African Humane Society extended its hospitality to an African Union Society member who in 1796 brought a letter of introduction while visiting Philadelphia. The two Black Voluntary Association later agreed to exchange their rules and regulation as a means of advancing mutual interests. All right, at its January 29th, 1797 meeting, the African Union Society resolved that if any person or persons come to this town well recommended from any society of Africans or people of color, and that society having the general good of all brethren in view, they shall be received as our own member. Several years later, the organization provided $10 emergency relief to the African Humane Society. William Dunbar, when his vessel sunk near the Newport on a return voyage to Philadelphia, this spirit of reciprocity further illustrated the growing sense of community among free blacks. Although they disagreed on the immediate goal of immigrating to Africa, they recognized their common plight and the need to help each other. All right, so as you can see, these organizations, right, the Free African Society, okay, and the African Humane Society, they coexist with each other. There were some disagreements, but they were able to put their heads together and say, you know what, the main focus is our people. Now, the Free African Society believed that our people should have went back to Africa or immigrate to Africa. And again, this is before the whole American Colonization Society organization came about, right? They felt that our people should immigrate to Africa. And then there were those from the other group that said, no, they should not. We should have because we have a fight here. We don't need to go there right about now. So it didn't take away from acknowledging their ancestors, because they recognized who their people were. They knew who they came from. All right, so I'm going to stop right here and I'm going to switch over. Okay, let's see. Okay, now the WikiOne website says that it was founded on 1780, right? Of course, in Newport, Rhode Island, and it was American first African benevolent society. Now, what is benevolent? Let's look at that. All right. Benevolent is a benefit society or fraternal benefit society or fraternal benefit order. It's a society and organization or voluntary association formed to provide mutual aid, benefits for existing, insurance for relief from sundry difficulties. Such organization may be formally organized with charters and established customs, or may arise ad hoc to meet unique needs of a particular time and place. Many major financial institutions existing today, particularly some insurance companies, mutual saving banks, and credit unions, all right, trace their origins back to benefit societies, as can many modern fraternal organizations and fraternal orders, which are now viewed as being primarily social. The modern legal system essentially requires all such organization of appreciable size to incorporate as one of these forms or another to continue to exist on an ongoing basis. All right. So again, the Benevolent Society is a fraternal group, a fraternal organization. So the Free African Union Society was like a fraternity group. All right. It was a fraternal order. All right. So it showed mutual trust between brothers and sisters. It was probably more men than it was women in the organization, but it was showing trust that we can take control of our own community. We can work together and function together. And whatever resources that we need, we have to be responsible to get those resources. That was all about mutual agreement. And they were trying to get aid and some type of nonprofit for their organization, so they can get the things that is necessary, that is needed for themselves and their families and their community. All right. Whew. Okay, so let's go down here. It says founders and early members included Prince Amy, Lincoln Elliott, Bristol Yama, Zingo Stevens, and Newport Gardner. All right. And so then it goes on in the background. Although Rhode Island had abolished African slavery in 1652, you read that right. Although Rhode Island had abolished African slavery in 1652, this law was not enforced. By 1750, Rhode Island had more slaves per capita than any other New England state. Enslaved blacks worked as seamen, farm laborers, and domestic servants. It was not until Rhode Island General Assembly passed the Gradual Emancipation Act in March of 1784 that slavery in Rhode Island was gradually ended. Even after this time, Newport, as a busy port city, remained a center of the U.S. slave trade until at least 1807. And it said, since most sources of welfare at the time were controlled by whites, free blacks across the early United States created their own mutual aid societies. These societies offer cultural centers, spiritual assistance, and financial resources to their members. Founded in 1780, Newport's Free African Union Society was the first mutual aid society for blacks in the United States, and similar societies formed throughout the Northeast during the next 30 years, including Philadelphia's Free African Society in 1787. All right. So let's go. Let's go down here. It says the purpose was to assist the poor and sick and to show mainstream white society that blacks could be responsible citizens. They provided members with proper burials, care for widows and orphans, and promoted the cause of abolition. They also kept basic records of blacks in the community and hired young enslaved black apprentices in hope of helping them purchase their freedom. At least 85 members of the Free African Union Society between 1787 and 1810 have been identified by name. In 1824, the society changed its name to Color Union Church and Society. Newport today is home to a large African-American burying ground called God's Little Acre. It may be home to the largest and oldest surviving collection of burial markers of enslaved and free Africans from the time period. All right, so as you can see, that's where you can go and find more information. There go the external link right here. And here's the references. Right? And now let's see. Let's go back and see what other information can be found on here. All right, so I'm skipping down. And right here it says, in Africa, social and political organization was based on a combination of segments, each self-contained but interdependent. These segments, generally called secret society, control their members' daily lives. F.W. Butt Thompson had delineated three types of secret societies in West Africa, many of which exist during the time of the slave trade. The mystic and religious societies included priests and holy men who supervise religious practice in their area. The democratic and patriotic society contained economic, social, and political groups. Black benevolent society were more closely resembled these associations. There were also the subversive and criminal society, which engaged in mafioso type of activity. Let me read that again. There were also subversive and criminal society, which engaged in mafioso types of activity. Some of these functions overlap, but the first two groups serve as an extension of traditional authority to achieve goals set by the particular social order. These associations were more obscriptive than voluntary. The Porto of Sierra Leone was a powerful secret society with origins before the 15th centuries that intricately linked social, political, and economic aspects of its members' lives. Nigeria's Igbo recognized mutual aid as a moral obligation, while the Jibe and Dahomey existed primarily to supply adequate financial aid for burial expenses of close relatives. Funerals characterize an extremely important element of African society. The African cosmology held that life must have both a good beginning and a proper ending. This frame of reference, especially the latter in which ancestors became a part of the spiritual universe and had some impact on their descendants' lives, form a key component of the Afro-Americans' worldview. The essential ingredients of most Black benevolent societies was the burial future. African secret and mutual aid societies also stress moral training and good conduct, which was another important attribute of early Black voluntary association. All right, so again, this comes from the website, all right, called the Early Black Benevolent Society, which was basically a fraternal order or so-called secret society, written by Robert L. Harris Jr., and the source can be found at Massachusetts Review, all right, fall of 1779, volume 20, number 3. Okay, published by the Massachusetts Review Incorporation, and can be found on jastor.org, www.jastor.org. All right. One may wonder, are there any fraternal orders as far as African Americans is concerned? Yes, there are a list of them. There are so many of them out there. Okay. Now, I don't really know them personally, but I know some people that's involved in certain society. And there is either groups that there's individuals who have started their own secret society, if you will, or social order. So again, let's go back to the concept about the credit union. So the credit union is catered to those who are members of a particular union, whether it be religious, whether it be the social, whether it be the political, it doesn't matter. You can be part of any of those unions. If you have a credit union, then that means that the members of that organization is in control of the finances. Okay, they're in control of that. That means it's only catered to those members. And also, what is part of the West African culture, right? And also with these societies is what is called susu. Susu is when you borrow money, right? But you have to pay back in return. So let's say everybody pitch in, put every money in a collection plate. When you put the money in a collection plate, right, and an individual or a group of people need something, you can give them the money that has been collected, but they have to make a promise to pay back in return. And if they don't pay that money back, then they will not be able to borrow money again until they pay back what they owe. All right. So that's what susu is. That's where the concept loan comes into existence. All right. Or you remember when you was in school, they had what's called the collateral, meaning that if you need a pencil, you tell the teacher, hey, I don't have a pencil. Can I borrow a pencil? The teacher say, okay, you can borrow a pencil, but you have to give me something in order for me to loan you a pencil. So you have to give the teacher either your jacket, either your notebook or something. So if you don't get that pencil back, you ain't getting that notebook back. Okay? So with the susu, if you borrow money from a group of people and you don't pay those people back, you're not getting no more money. So you make a promise that if you borrow something, you're going to pay back the exact amount unless it has been negotiated. But other than that, you pay the exact amount that you owe. All right. Now, that all ties into how the societies, the fraternal order, how they run things. Okay, how they have their own credit union. They want to be in control of the financial resources. All right. They want to be able to control the accounts, not the private banks. Okay. Not your major banks out here, but the members of that union, of that organization, is in control of the account. So that was the purpose of the credit unions, and that's how credit unions came about, through the mutual aid societies, through the social orders, through the fraternal orders, and secret societies. Okay? So anyways, and peace, Sister Courtney. Thank you for coming on here. I thank you so much for coming through. That's all I have for tonight. I hope you all enjoyed that information. And if you guys want to share this video, you're more than welcome to do so. And if you also want to subscribe to the channel, please do so. And if you also want to send a donation to the Cash App, go ahead and send that right there. That's the Cash App information at the bottom. So you're more than welcome to do that. So yeah, if you're just coming in and you're watching at the very last minute, you have to watch the video from the very beginning. You have to go to the very beginning and see what the topic is about and see what the sources are and all that great stuff. All right. So until next time, I will reconnect with you guys. I will come back with information, of course, as I always do. So this happened by random. Okay. So usually I'm not here on a Tuesday night, but I decided to just go ahead and just do it because I had some time under my belt. So I said, well, let me go ahead and do some Black history for tonight. Why not? All right. But anyways, we'll reconnect. So take it easy. All right. And be safe. Like, seriously, be safe. All right. Thank you so much.